Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker and today is our next podcast on the channel. Now this is going to be a really long episode, so I want to make this intro as fast as possible. But yes, it's our next group podcast and I have three incredible guests for today's episode. First of all, we have Brennan DeCandio, who is a very well-known player in the Lorcana scene, with some great accolades behind them already. 4 top cuts in the pack online tournaments, which were some of the biggest tournaments that we've had in Lorcana, the online ones. 4 top cuts and then 2 wins, went back to back as winner of online events, and also made top 8 in DLC Chicago playing Sapphire Steel. We are also joined by Zan Syed, who is also no stranger to Lorcana success. A bunch of tops in their time so far, but most recently made top 4 in DLC Atlanta playing some FluteSong. And our final guest is another player that I've been trying to track down for some time. We are going to be joined by The Rat, who, again, also no stranger to Lorcana success. Recently won DLC Chicago, a huge accomplishment for them. First at the Revenge of the Fifth online pack event, top 8 at another online pack event, and then a bunch of other top 16s and top 8s at various Lorcana events. So 3 incredible players. And yeah, we ended up talking for about 2 hours, and normally I try and cut it down to about an hour and a half, but I thought it was such a good chat, I've just decided to leave basically the whole thing. You'll see little cuts here and there where I've just tried to trim dead space and try and minimize it as much as I can, but it was a really, really fun episode. This was recorded a few days ago, and I'm now doing this intro a few days later. It's actually Wednesday, the 3rd of July for me. I'm going to be leaving for DLC Germany about 2 o'clock in the morning, but I've been determined to get this out before I leave, so I want to move straight on. However, I need to give an immediate disclaimer and an apology. I am an absolute fool of a took. Long story short, when we were doing our recording session, once every blue moon, my mic decides to just reset its settings. I've got sound gates on there and all sorts of stuff, so it should only be picking up my voice in the best qualities of it. Unfortunately, my microphone settings for some reason just reset to default, and because of that, it was picking up my very loud fan that was going on in the background. It was really, really hot, so I had that on me. It's not constant throughout the entire video. There are parts of it where you might be able to just hear it really faintly in the background, but there are other parts of the conversation where it's really prominent and it's really bad, and I felt so embarrassed. I felt so awful when I was editing it, and I realised. All I can say is I'm sorry. I've cleaned it up the best I can. I'm sorry if it dampens your listening experience to this video, but I'm going to go ahead and upload it anyway because it was such a great chat, and it is a great shame, but I apologise for that. I will definitely look to try and make sure that doesn't happen again in the future. But yeah, it's not constant, and hopefully you're still able to enjoy the conversation. A quick shout out to our channel sponsors, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles, then please check out Cardmarket for very competitive rates. Other than that, let's jump in to the podcast. And as promised, I am joined by some of the greatest Lorcana players in the world. Already definitely some options for the Mount Rushmore of Lorcana. We are joined by Brennan DeCandio, Zan Syed, and Brian the Rat. Welcome on in, gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I already said this before we started, but as a content creator, it's a pleasure to get to speak to you and have you on the channel. That's great for me. But as a competitive player, you're guys that I've looked up to for a long while. I've followed your success, and it's going to be great to pick your brains. But for the sake of anyone at home that may not be familiar with who you are and your accolades, could you all please just do a short introduction of who you are, what your history is with TCG, how long you've been playing Lorcana? Let's start off with you, Brennan.
Yeah, so I'm Brennan DeCandio. I come primarily from a Magic Gathering background. Been playing since 2002. Took a kind of break at the beginning of last year when this game came out. Kind of wanted to take a break in general, and this kind of lined up pretty well. So I've been playing Lorcana since its inception, pretty consistently throughout there, and I've enjoyed it a lot since. It's been great.
Awesome. And Zan?
Yeah, I've been playing TCGs since I was probably 5 years old, so I don't know, 25 years, but I would say my background comes from Magic. I didn't start playing Magic until 2010. So that's been like 12 years. Yeah, Magic is my background, and
And how long have you been playing Lorcana for? From the
oh,
beginning, or
the first day, first day.
from the first day?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
So another Magic the Gathering veteran in our midst. And Brian the Rat. Do you prefer Brian or the Rats, or should I just keep calling you Brian the Rat? What do you prefer?
You can just call me Brian, since everyone else is using their first names here.
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names. I'm Spider-Man then.
Yeah, so I've been playing card games like 20 years. Started with Yu-Gi-Oh, played Magic after that, and then I played Hearthstone professionally, and then I've been playing Lorcana since it released Chapter 1.
So 3 very experienced TCG players in general, and all been here since the very first chapter of Lorcana. So, and obviously lots of accolades, which we've already talked through in the intro. I would have talked you through all the fantastic accomplishments that these guys have. So moving straight along, because there's a lot of topics that I want to cover. First of all, I know that you all have played at least a bit of set 4, because you have all done at least one DLC in set 4 format. Obviously, let's address this straight away. Playtesting is now a lot harder since we lost our online client. May it rest in peace. I've said this before, Disney Lorcana, if you're watching, I hope one is in the works, because it is so very important to the community. But as it is, we do not have one, which does make playtesting a bit harder. How have you guys been getting on with being able to find time to playtest since your last event, Brennan?
Yeah, even when we had access to an online client, I think a lot of what I used that for was just experimenting with fun ideas, mostly, without having to commit to buying certain cards or anything like that. But a lot of my preparation comes from data analysis, really, less so than actually playing. Kind of what metagames are going to be, what events I'm seeing, and what decks are more popular. So I've been getting along. I have a few people I talk to, and locals. I go some Wednesday nights, a little bit less so recently than prior, but no, it's definitely a hurdle to overcome, because I'm constantly someone who wants to test out ideas. And yeah, it'd be great if we got an online client of some kind, or even an announcement of one to be determined, that there is one coming. That's also great. But yeah, I think it's hard for a lot of people to kind of practice sequencing, which I think some of the other card games that I've played over the years has really taught me, with just how to play Lorcana. It blends in very well. So I think some people not having that kind of practice is a big deal, but for me it's more the data is not as prevalent as it used to be, so it's harder to analyze things. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a game changer, but in some ways it could benefit more experienced players just from having the ability to have that skill of how to play with certain decks kind of down pat, just from overall experience, and give kind of a bit of leeway for newer players to have some room to innovate, but also it may backfire in that sense too, just because the amount of refinement that goes into online play. But yeah, it's not too effectful, but yeah.
No, but it's that takes it a step deeper than some people may just off the cuff look at it. Like, again, you got to imagine all these snowball effects that are going to come as a result of not everyone being able to constantly jam games, test decks. In some ways, the meta's going to slow down, but that's also going to be reflected by the top players, or the players that are putting in the most practice. And are the decks that they're making and the plays that they're coming up with, is that as well known now because you don't have these big events going on in the Pixelborn client? So it is interesting to take it that step deeper. Zan, how has your playtesting been so far since your last event? Have you had a chance to do much?
Yeah, so for the DLC we still had Pixelborn, so I feel like I just try to get in as much as I possibly can, and I feel like the answers I reached were pretty much what everybody else ended up reaching for the DLC Chicago. And so still relying on that testing. I think that we're really going to see the effect after set 5 comes out, where we see like how players get like stagnated. I will say I have ideas, but I haven't really found an outlet to test them. I also don't feel like if I went to locals, it would be enough games to like make some of these ideas a reality. And so it's kind of shrinking what I would probably play at a tournament. And so This past weekend there was a 10K and a 2K in Atlanta, and I ended up playing Green Steel, and I don't think I would play any other deck. I think it's the same deck I would play even if Pixelborn was still around. But if there was a chance that I didn't play Green Steel, I would have needed Pixelborn to come up with that answer, and I don't think that I can get in enough of a sample size to find something new.
That's interesting, the idea that there are more people playing this deck that a lot of people really do not like, simply because, and there are some players sitting there going, well, I'd love to play something else, but I don't have the means to test what works and what is good enough. So because I can't do that, I'm going to play what I already know works, what we already know works. So that's interesting as well. And Brian, how about you? Have you had much chance to play since your Chicago win, first place at DLC? Congratulations again for that.
Yeah, thanks. It was a wild weekend. Since then, I've played in a couple locals, and I've actually played a decent amount in person as well, just like at my house with friends. I think that, like they said, kind of for set 5 is when you'll see how the meta develops differently. For now, like you have the people call it the big 4, maybe people think it's 3, whatever it is, but basically like without some insane amount of games or some deck appearing that we look at and we're like, oh, like that looks really good, it might actually be a top deck. Like there's really no reason to expect the meta to change much, like the representation. And I think because of that, it's hard to like really justify, in my opinion, playing something different than I already was playing with Green Steel. Like if I thought the meta might be changing more, like on Pixel, like from week to week, like the most popular deck could be like radically different, then maybe I'd feel differently. And then just like testing a new deck, it's kind of weird because like you have to really believe that the deck's gonna be good, because if you don't, you're not just like wasting a random person's time on the ladder, you're wasting like your friend's time, and they'd rather be testing against a real deck. So it's just like the way that it works out is just that becomes like really inefficient. And if you're like rational with your time and stuff, it just makes more sense to try to look at what everyone else is doing, consume data, and then just adapt like I would change my Green Steel list or whatever, and then whenever I play I would just try to like execute better with my deck.
I was going to ask you about your favorite decks to play, but I feel like that's a very different conversation to what is probably the best decks to be playing. So let's stick more on the meta side, and then later on we'll lean more into the like what are you enjoying on a more casual basis. So that being said, let's talk about the Lorcana meta right now, and is it healthy? I know that's almost a loaded question, like there's a lot of directions you can go, but that's why we've got 3 of you. Hopefully you'll all pick on different avenues you could take with this question, but yeah, we'll keep switching it up. We'll start with the rat this time, and we'll go in reverse to Zan and then to Brennan. Do you think we currently have a healthy meta?
I think that the meta is healthy, but I don't think that is as healthy as it was in set 3. Like and this is if I were to speak like in like thinking about all the metas I've played for all the card games I've played like over the years, like how much does, let's say, skill matter? Like I think that we're still on like the better half. So to me, like it's that's the best I can ask for. That's what I'm looking for, like a game where I feel like I can at least still make a difference a good amount of the time, and I think that's still the case. So for me, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a healthy meta. I know that one thing is about how players feel about the meta, regardless of what the reality of the data is, and right now it's a frustrating situation because 2 of the best decks, one of them revolves around discard, which is just something that people don't like, and then because you plan stuff and then it gets interrupted and that just feels bad. And then another thing is like red blue, just the way that it operates is also like kind of suffocating to people. So definitely can understand where people are coming from, but I think overall it's actually still healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if we compare it to other card games, we're still on the healthy side, but I would say I want to hold Lorcana separate and separate from everything else,
Mm-hmm.
like just on its own, I think that it's pretty unhealthy. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
power creep was in set 4 has just been pretty pretty insane. I felt like in set 3, if you played like the first 10 turns better than your opponent, that you're more likely to win. And I feel like now that's kind of out the window. It's just about what your first 3 turns, and that's more about what your opener is. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that there's one deck that stands above the rest. There isn't like 4 decks really. There's just one deck. It's green steel. And I just think that right now, like when Chicago happened, it was a little bit more questionable, and I was trying to like push it to be a rock paper scissors format, but I think it's pretty clear that one deck stands above everything else. And I think that discard in that deck is a little bit different, because it's 100. When you make your opponent discard a card, you're making them discard 100% a card. Like in Magic, it can be like a land card, which is less valuable at certain points. And So yeah, I just think that the fact that you have that curve of like Diablo on 1, Bucky on 2, and then
Immediate shift.
shift. Yeah, that swing I have, like basically, if you like with my locals, what I did was I was like, okay, you guys have that curve 100% of the games. All right, and then I'm just gonna play the other top decks, and I'm gonna like basically just pick my 7, and how many times can I win?
Mm-hmm.
It's 0. It is just 0. You just can't beat that. You're not gonna win. Like um basically you get to this point, like the best case scenario is both players have 0 cards, and the blue red player has 7 or 8 ink, and they end up just top decking the wrath effect that resets it, and then it's still a top deck war. And so yeah, like I just don't think that that's that's healthy. And
Good.
I think
Good for the game. Yeah.
we need to get rid of the Diablo, right? I like if we get rid of the Diablo, then it can be more about, instead of turns 1, 2, and 3, maybe even just turn 1 and 2, we can start getting back to where turn 3, 4, 5 matter a lot more. So yeah, I'm just gonna hold
Yeah.
Lorcana to a different standard. So
Yeah. No, please do. I think that's perfectly fine. And Brennan, your thoughts? Is it a healthy meta, and why?
I think it's TBD on health. I don't think we had enough time with it, honestly, to really figure it out. It is very paralyzing, the format. I think it was kind of said in both ways by Zan and Brian. The constriction that the 4 decks that are most played, let's say, called Big Four, whatever, Ruby Sapphire, Blue Steel, Blue Green Steel, and then Ruby Amethyst have. It's not really much of a rock paper scissors, because there's 4 different things to choose from, but it's more so the lack of options you have to play decks aside from those that can do well. I think we saw very few decks make a cut in beyond that, and that would make a little bit of sense to me if this game had 5 colors in it, like Magic, where you have 4 different color pairs all doing well. But when you have 6, that's a whole, there's 15 different color pairs you can have in this game. Only 4 of them are really doing anything relevant, and that's still not bad by numbers. And if you consign to playing those 4 decks, then it doesn't look too bad, because some of them have gained against others. But I think long term, and this is, I guess, where Zan and I differ. I think Bucky's more the paralyzing card, because you can plan your game around fighting a Diablo, whether it might be going long or otherwise, but not being able to keep any kind of backup to win that top deck war afterwards, once you've eventually dealt with the Diablo in some way or another, really kind of puts a strain on it. And I think I made a deck spread sheet of just essentially the cards in the game that can answer Diablo, or not answer Bucky, period. And there were, I think, 15 in total. I think 11 of them were situational, and like 2 of them were inkable, and I think 11 of them were in steel. They're just you really restricted on what you can choose to do in the game because of cards like that. And yeah, I mean, it makes essentially you have to choose which side you're on. You're on the side of getting out under it with Queen's Castle. You're on the side of playing cards like Hole in the World or playing a deck with Harm, Flavor Sham, and that's really it. That's really what we see the metagame devolve into. That's just the only things I can compete with. What would be the best deck? Yeah, for sure, Bucky. Bucky Diablo discard is the best deck, I think, and very few decks can kind of contend with it. Even in their best draws, Bucky doesn't care what your cards do. It just remove text boxes entirely. And since there's no type of effect that triggers when your card's discarded in the game, not to say that would be the best design for this game because of how things interact on both turns, it'd be okay. But in that sense, it's still pretty paralyzing. And the binds, that we saw kind of emerge in set 3 with how blue-red puts such a strain on the characters that are played because we're kind of already forced into a position where everything you play has to have an immediate impact or cost less than 4. Really is how the game is too. We're really early in a game for that to be what it's about, and every game eventually devolves into that. I mean, I think back to Brian. I think we were talking about. I played Yu-Gi-Oh for like a couple of years. Gemini Elf was like the best thing. It was like a 1900 attacker vanilla. I was just bigger than anything else. And now
Yu-Gi-Oh's my game, so I remember that.
Yeah. I think I played for like the first 9 sets of the game that I didn't play anymore. But we're a little early for that to be what the game's about, I think. And cards that don't care about text boxes. Yeah, Medusa has the strength constraint, but Bucky really, and Diablo, that package is just really, really powerful. And like it's a bit much, but healthy in a sense that you can play different decks, yes, but good, no. You're kind of confined to this very small space to play within, and that's not too fun.
A couple of things to pick up of the points you just made. So first of all, you mentioned about, so I've been saying for a while, I want to see a card that cares about being discarded. So you brought that up briefly, and what are your thoughts on that? I know you sort of said you weren't sure if that was a good design for the game, but maybe it is. Can you expand on that a little bit more on why it might not be a good idea to have cards like that? Or why it might be?
Sure. Yeah, so far the only cards in the game that have an effect on your opponent's turn that really is that dramatic in a sense would be Mufasa's the biggest one because it can change game objects on your opponent's turn. That's like the only one, I believe. Sheriff
there's
Nottingham.
cards that pop during your opponent's turn, like a rabbit or whatever. I mean, it definitely increases the complexity.
Yeah, the game state doesn't change though.
Yeah.
But, like as far as cards that have impact on the game state is really something. It'd have to be a character that has no actual text other than being put to play for without paying it kind of thing. It can't have something that, when you play it, then triggers to do something else kind of thing. I don't think you can really, but you'd want to.
Why not?
This isn't magic. This isn't magic. As Zan said, this is a different card game. But it creates this whole disincentivation for playing your cards, which is something you always want people to do. So like when they do their thing with that, like they get punished by it, is not really what this game's about so far. Is how I feel.
It's not built its way in a way where you are meant to be interacting multiple times during an opponent's turn, and you like that. I take from that, like you would like it to stay as much on that train as it can.
I like the simplicity of the game because there's the whole level of simplicity is very apparent to everyone who's new. That's just clear. Like you kind of understand the game mechanics and you can understand what you do, and you don't have to think about what your opponent's going to do too often. Like that's kind of where you get better at the game, is by learning what's going to happen next. And the game's complex enough, to be honest. I think there's a lot of times where you're talking about the first couple of turns of matterings, and that's for sure. Previously, it mattered maybe a bit more to turn 5 or 6, I would say, when a lot of decisions are made, the kind of game is won at that point. But right now, it can be won and lost in the first couple of turns of the game, and it's already complicated enough. We don't need to add too much more, but some way to combat that effect would be desirable.
Yeah, and that moves us to the next point, which is Zan brought up the Diablo being the problem. Brandon, you brought up maybe the Bucky being more the problem. I've said before, I think the problem is not either of these cards. I think it's our lack of answers to these cards. So I think Diablo in a vacuum is fine. It's specifically with Bucky that that line that you said, Diablo into Bucky into Diablo, because there's no skill expression there for a start. And again, if you just didn't hit the answer, if you didn't hit your Brawl or whatever it is, that is your Diablo answer in your deck. As you say, the game's probably just decided there and then. And again, we want to encourage skill expression. Of course, it will always be an RNG-based game to a degree, but the more we can increase skill expression, the better. So that leads me on to... So it's 2 separate questions. One is leaning on towards the conversation to do with a ban list and getting your thoughts not only on do you think that is a good or a bad idea, and if it is a good idea, who are the targets for this ban list at the moment, but similarly, what would you like to see come to the game so that we don't necessarily need a ban list? Like, maybe this only needs banning. If Bucky only needs banning because we can't answer it, what do we need and in what colour to kind of even it out a bit? I'd love to get your thoughts just on whatever you feel more passionately about in what I just brought up, whether it's to do with a ban list or something you want to see brought to Lorcana, or specifically card you really want to see banned. I mean, Brennan, I remember you saying, I mean, I don't know how much of it was true and how much of it was a joke, but you brought up Medusa. I think we've all had this conversation at some point in our Lorcana careers about how Medusa is just got her thumb on so many cards that we would love to play. What are your thoughts on that, Zan? Let's start with you and mix it up a little bit. So yeah, anything to do with a ban list or a card you'd like to see? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say I had a different answer set 3, and then set 4 kind of changed everything for me. I would say I thought like the way that they were designing stuff, that they had rules in place, like when before set 4, shifting the best shift or like the lowest shift cost was 2, and I just didn't think that we were gonna reach 0 this quick. And so in set 3 I would have said, you know, we can what do you call it? What happens in vintage, Brennan, when they go down to 1? Yeah, restrict.
That's terrible.
Yeah, so in set 3 I was
for
like,
what it's worth.
I felt like we could get away with restricting, because I was like, oh, what if they restricted Whole New World? At least I still get to play Whole New World.
No.
But in set 4 the answer's completely changed, because the cards have become so much more oppressive than I thought they were capable, because I just thought that they had put restrictions on themselves in terms of how they were going to build out the game. And so yeah, I would say we need a ban list. Yeah, we need a ban list, and I hope that we have like an actual testing team that because what I don't want is one deck to completely get banned and then we're just sitting with the other obvious answer. I will say, like, if Green Steel got like Bucky and Diablo got banned, we do have a pretty nice format, because, you know, blue red, even though it would be oppressive to a certain degree, you still get red purple, which counters it pretty hard. And then Green Steel still exists because the Green Steel deck from last set is still a great deck. So I wouldn't, I want the ban list.
Yeah, that's honestly fair. Before we move along, I just want to reiterate that I love to see some people like shaking the head nodding, because I do want to encourage polite disagreement between pro players. Like, let's find out where we are aligned, where you guys agree, and where your like difference of opinions come. I think that's really important. So Brennan, let me give you your chance to respond to why you don't want to see restrictions. Why you don't want to see restricted.
Yeah, restrictions the worst option for me at all times, because it doesn't change the play experience when it happens. Normally it would anyway. Like, it almost makes it worse. So if you get turned to Whole New World and it's restricted to 1, you either A, think your opponent might be doing something a little sketchy in some ways because it's unlikely, or B, know you got horribly unlucky to have them have that on turn 2. And that feels even worse than just having 4 of it, to be honest. That's why restrictions are never really an option in my books for how to fix things. It just makes the experience even worse when they have it on the turn they need it. So that's
a restriction to work. Basically, like, the game has to have a situation where the card that they're restricting doesn't win the game on its own, and you're seeing like all the cards in your deck every time you play. Otherwise, like in every other scenario, it's exactly like Brendan said, where like if you have 1 Whole New World, it's like, oh, I can still play it. All I'm thinking from my side is like, okay, well, they only have 1 Whole New World, so I'm gonna do this because they're not likely to have Whole New World, and then they have Whole New World, and I'm like, well, this was the worst thing ever. Like, why did I just? Like, you know, it just doesn't really, like, I think, solve the problem.
No, so this is what I'm gonna say.
Like, way less.
Good.
I'm gonna respond now to the response. Okay, so
Please,
I
please.
think that so when you like when you are making a change, it's hard for you, like let's say you ban something outright, it's hard for you to go back to a middle ground. So I think that it's a free thing to try and see what the response is. And so yeah, like I mean, if you were to restrict it to one, it like and the gameplay doesn't end up getting fixed, then I think that okay, a right out ban makes a lot of sense. But the other thing that I really wanted, the reason why I thought about restriction in set 3 was because I didn't want cards to go from, you know, $50 to 0 right away.
But that's gonna happen with a ban or restricted list of any sort.
I think that restriction does a
argument.
much better job at maintaining the value, and I think that one of the reasons why Lorcana does is so like is different than other card games, not including Magic, is because it like the economy of the cards are still intact, right? Nothing has really gotten banned. So we see Diablo getting to $55 now, and people still feel really safe because nothing's gotten banned. And so if restriction happened first, and that way there would be a moment where people are like, is it going to get banned or is it not going to get banned? And it would protect people's assets, because you know this is a lot of people's first TCG. I just don't want people to experience what they experienced in Magic, which was like, oh, this $100 card banned straight down to 0, and that's what we experienced in Magic. So I felt like it was a good way to find a middle ground.
Mm-hmm. Brian,
for any casual people, a ban list and a restricted list just aren't that great. It's like a new rule you have to understand about the game you might not know, which is just like, you know, added complexity. And then it's like you said, like even if you restricted Beast today, he's gonna drop like 30-40 bucks, like right off the rip. He'll be down to like $20 from 55, even if you put him down to 2 or like 1. Like, you know, and I think that you're spot on in being worried about that, because that's a huge concern. And I think that for me is one of the reasons why I don't want to see, like, unless the situation was so bad, and I don't think we're there actually, like to see a ban list this early on in the game, I think would be like pretty detrimental to like the secondhand economy, you know, people's comfortableness with buying more cards, like all of that. Yeah, so for me, like it would really have to be like, stuff would have to be extremely bad.
What about rotation then? Because like, since we're talking about things also from a financial standpoint, I played a bit of Pokemon. That's how they do things. Like, you'll have X amount of sets in rotation in format at a time, and then I can't remember how long it is, but every X amount of time they move to a new legal set. So what would your thoughts be if, let's say, we get to set 13 and then they say, right, from this date it's set 11 onwards, for the first 10 sets we're like, that was your first chapter, and then from then on, like, it's a new set. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously there are implications as well, as you were talking financially. Like, if you can't play a card in standard format anymore, that makes a difference. Although if there is support for maybe older formats, that could change things. But that is also a way to just sort of like freshen up our meta. At the same time, again, I don't want to give my opinions too much because I want yours, but at the same time, like, I feel like the meta gets freshened up quite well anyway, just due to the fact that, like, the character names and how things can suddenly become better just because they get either a shift target or a Floodborn to go with it. I think that's a really good thing, that suddenly now we're looking at this card 3 or 4 sets back, which now, even if its use is just because we shift onto it, that still affects the meta, because how much strength does it have? What niche effects does it have? So what are your thoughts on a rotation if it was to go that way? Brian, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, personally, I think that part of them putting the ban list in the rules, at least, is that they might be, this is my speculation, not planning a rotation. I actually think that a couple things. One, segmenting your player base into multiple formats can be dangerous long term. And then 2, there's 2 ways that basically you can like solve this. You can power creep your cards, and so that like Maui is no longer the best 5-drop. or you can do a rotation so that Maui is no longer in the card pool, or you could ban Maui, right? And I actually think that the best of these three options is to eventually power creep the card, and like, you know, put a card that's stronger in a future set once you're like sick of seeing the card, or, you know, there's a way to maybe make something like something popular that's Maui's not good against. That's not the case right now. The card's still like amazing, you know, it takes out locations. But, you know, like let's say there was like a pure item deck that was good, and, you know, there wasn't even like a way for Maui to interact with it or something, or like the cards that are actually good on those turns aren't susceptible to Maui in like some way. Like I would just prefer that, you know, compared to a rotation, they do something like that. I think when you do a rotation, it makes it so it's the same thing I said before. Like eventually somebody's like, I got these cards and I got these cards, but I can't play these cards in this thing. I got to play these cards, but like, you know, I have all these cards and I want to use like these old cards. And I think that's part of the reason why Commander became such a popular format. But now, if you follow Magic Commander, like, you know, there's new Commander cards coming out all the time, so you have to keep up with Commander, where originally people were like, well, that's how I like playing. And, you know, Magic's like actual sales, you know, it's doing better than ever, and the majority of the way people play is like tabletop kitchen type deal, and like these people aren't even playing with like whatever rules you think are like normal to the game anyways. So I think it's actually best just to keep the experience similar across like all ways that people consume the game. Like you have a Lorcana card, it goes in a deck of 60, you can play up to 4, you play 2 colors, that's that, like, you know.
And you can play it,
and you can play cards from all the history. And then, you know, if you have to have a ban list, then eventually, you know, there are cards when you go to a tournament you're not going to be able to play. And I think that kind of like, maybe it's just the Yu-Gi-Oh player in me. I mean, they have restricted and limited lists, which I'm not really a fan of, I already said, but that's kind of where I land on a rotation.
Yep. Brennan, Zan, anything to add to that?
Not too much. It's hard. It's a dangerous kind of line to cross in some ways or another. Yeah, because it affects the secondary market and people's investment in the game. I would imagine that I mean, personally, I think a rotation is inevitable for most games. It's really hard to keep a game fresh without just straight power creep, which I don't enjoy. There's more creative ways to get around straight power creeping, I think. Like there's plenty of ways to get around it, but I just with a more clever design. But the design space isn't actually that large in Lorcana, to be honest. It's a relatively narrow design space, meaning what you can do with your cards as far as within the rule set is relatively low. Compared, we see that in Hearthstone too. They've really had to push a lot of boundaries with their design space recently, kind of renaming, you know, in Magic too. I mean, everything is essentially kicker in Magic. It's everything just an added bonus to doing whatever you're doing. But we'll see what ends up being done. My preference is a rotation with a lot of attention still being drawn to the older format in some way, not essentially getting rid of the ability to play new cards, but maybe, you know, some DLCs you have two or three per set, you know, NA and EU, and maybe, you know, every other one of them or whatever is the original format of everything, and then there's one that is just the, you know, rotated format in some way. Or yeah, I mean, maybe you don't call it a ban list, you call it like a probation list, where things are not legal at a time for a certain amount of months, and then they come back, and everyone knows that, so they don't lose the value as much because they know they can play with it again in 6 months or something like that. It's a little bit harder to keep track of.
Yeah. But you kind of, you get the best of both worlds. Then at least you're guaranteed more fresher formats, but you're like you say, you're not losing your investment. So yeah, I like that. Yeah,
it's a little curated, and it kind of has to be very definitive. You can't really kind of change halfway through that announcement of what's changed. Like you can't, oh, we need to then change this as well, kind of thing, because people make plans well ahead of time. I know people have already planned for, you know, the Vegas event, even though they're not necessarily getting tickets to it, who knows, you know. But things like that, you can't mess with it mid go. But there's a lot of answers, and I'm not sure the right one that's for people who do this for a living get to decide. But I think something's eventually going to change in that way. But yeah.
Yep. Zan, any different opinions to offer on that?
Not really. No rotation. Yeah, definitely not a fan of rotations. I do think that one of the strongest things about Lorcana is that there's one way to play. Like, I think that everybody is trying to learn that one way to play, and it keeps all of us kind of together. And I think in content creation, that really stood out to me. In Magic, like, it felt impossible to entertain a Magic player because they could be from a completely different side of Magic. And so, yeah, I really think that, everybody's trying to get better. It feels like the first card game that's like closest to what chess is trying to accomplish, and they did come up with other ways to play, but still there's like a main way to play, and I think that's ultimately the best thing for the game.
Nice. Let's move us along to a slightly different topic. I get asked about quite a lot. During Lille, actually, the amount of people that I spoke to in person that were like, what are your thoughts on this? Side decks, or sideboard, I think it's called in Magic. Is that right?
Yep.
So, like I say, I get asked this all the time. I remember it from my Yu-Gi-Oh days. You could have a 15 card side deck. I don't know if that's changed, but back in my day, that's what it was. What are your thoughts? Does Lorcana need a side deck? Would it be good, bad for the game? Open question. Anyone got a thought on that?
I think that it would be ultimately not good for the game. I think that would make... I mean, if you were to potentially do it, you would be very limited in what you can do, because that's kind of built into the design of the game itself. Cards be inkable, not inkable. You can have situational cards in your deck and just have them be ink, as long as they're not too... I mean, uninkable cards, kind of going back to that point of answers to Bucky that exist. Only two of the ones that I mentioned were inkable. It was a Tinkerbell and a Cinderella, like the big Cinderella is the only two cards that are inkable that could deal with it. So that's part of the issue in my mind for that. But having to make those decisions with your initial deck build is pretty, I think, a big learning curve, and also kind of the fun of getting to build a deck with unique slots being devoted to certain matchups. And when they're not relevant, you can just ink them. Like I played Blue Steel at the last challenge. I played Rise of the Titans and some other things that just didn't have targets against Green Steel or things like that, but I just inked it in those matchups and it was fine. But I think the game rules allow for those cards we would normally see as sideboard cards to be in our decks to begin with. So I don't think we need one, but if we did, I wouldn't give you more than 5 slots to switch things in and out, and it wouldn't make sense in a 2-game set format, to be honest, because they can be disparagingly different play versus draw, and you're not guaranteed to go first or second in one of them. It's a little weird to me, but I don't know. That's just me.
Only in 2 out of 3s would it make maybe any sense. Zan, Brian?
I mean, I completely agree with Brennan.
I'm totally against side decks, so.
You don't want side decks?
No, not at all.
Okay, yeah, same here.
What about your tertiary deck?
It's everything Brennan said. It's like the fact that a card in your hand is inkable, or it's another resource. Like, I'd rather just see, like, okay, if these cards are good cards in certain matchups, then they're in your deck, and you found the best 60 to include those, and in the matchups they mattered, you kept them and used them. And like, I don't think that's like something that's not exactly how it works in Magic. So for Magic, like, I think it makes more sense. Or honestly, even in Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like, the side deck's so important because the cards are so broken. But like, in general, like, I don't think that it's necessarily like the best thing, there either. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go like into specific examples, but like, some people can swap their whole deck up with 15 cards. You know what I mean? It's like it's a lot of cards.
I want to ask about a Lorcana card that exists that you like, that you're interested in, that you think has potential, but either needs more support, or maybe there's just something that's in format that's keeping it out of play. Does anyone have a card that they would like to talk up about its potential that we have at the moment?
I've always enjoyed Jim Hawkins. That's a card that I think just is slightly being pushed out by there being not that many good locations that stand up to Maui, honestly. Maui is the card in the game that's keeping most locations in check. Just you almost don't look at a location if it has less than 6 willpower or less. You almost don't even look at it because of Maui, because it's in some of those played decks, and Jim Hawkins is kind of cut down because of that. And in the Ruby Amethyst mirror matches, which you may play, where locations can be good, they're still not good because of Maui or Mim Fox, those things. So Jim Hawkins is one of the ones I always like experimenting with. I have like a couple red-green locations decks I've tried building and stuff, and it's it's just constantly been underperforming because they're just so easily attacked. And that's why I wish, maybe if we get some steel locations that are reasonable to play, or amber, really, then we'll see. But yeah.
I mean, if they want to print locations with enter play effects and put lore on them, I think that you could see more of them, even with Maui.
Jim seems like a safe bet for the future. Again, like the better locations are, the better he's going to be going forward. Yeah, nice choice. Zan, Brian, any cards you like?
Have you tried the red-yellow deck, Brennan, from last weekend?
No.
Oh, the one that Townman Purple made top 8 with. Yeah, I covered this the other day and I interviewed him for an episode on the channel. Absolute madness. Love it. 4 times Underworld, 4 RLS Legacy, and what was the other one? Oh, the Tiana's Palace.
Tiana's Palace,
with Tuk-Tuks and Jim. Love
8 health. Yeah, I tried that deck.
How was it?
Maui's a good card.
Yeah, Maui
I
is
mean,
a good card.
in general, like locations, like if they ever really like snuck back in right now, like all the purple-red decks just put crabs, like more crabs back in, and then like they're all gone instantly, like just like that, poof. Like Maui wasn't enough. Once you add the crab, it's like even worse.
So there is one card that I really want to see more play is Jafar. I want more Jafars. Like, give us more Jafar so the big Jafar can shift onto it.
Mm-hmm. The Striking
like
Illusionist, I assume you mean, the flood one.
Yeah, the 7-mana one, yep.
It's weird because, like, you would think he's got a few compared to some other characters, because there's in Steel, there's the 2-drop, sorry, the 3-drop. No, is it a 2-drop? The one with Evasive?
Yeah,
it's 2-drop. Yeah, it's 2-drop. You got the 2-drop. You have the Dreadnought, obviously, and then in purple you've got the Keeper of Secrets and the Lamp Thief. So I feel like he actually already has quite a few targets.
They should just make a Maleficent that, like a Jafar that's just like the 3-drop Maleficent. That
just Maleficent's effect, but called Jafar.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I see you. And Brian, anything that you would like to be better? Need some more support?
I don't know how you do it, but I actually like the card Arthur.
Oh,
he's
nice.
just so weak to everything now. Like I played him a little bit in set 2, like red purple aggro and red purple mirrors were common or whatever. But now it's just like dies to brawl on top of everything else. It's just not a thing that really works. But I think it kind of like speaks to a bigger situation that Brendan already touched on, which is that most cards need enter the battlefield to actually get value in this game.
See, one that I thought one of you might have brought up was Philatites, the Trainer of Heroes. Yeah, because I swear at least one of you I saw at some point playing on when we had our online client, playtesting some Rockstar Heroes. What do you think about Phil? Could he be good in the future?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'd have to get a few more heroes, maybe. I mean, it has to be viewed the right way, I think. It's not like this endgame engine kind of thing. It's more of just something that's kind of valuable for when you play it to really challenge something and then maybe gains lore. But its stat line's pretty low to begin with.
All right, let's move along into organized play. So only a couple of questions on this particular. We're going to move on to actually DLC. We're going to look at your deck list that you did well in your DLCs and we're going to talk about future DLCs. But strictly from more of a technical organized play standpoint, I want to discuss both 2-game format and I want to discuss pricing. Let's start with the funner one, the more upbeat one. Are we happy with Lorcana pricing? I'm going off of DLC and set championships because these are the only ones that have had actual prize support from Ravensburger. So we'll start with Brian. Obviously, you first place, you got the lot, which obviously would have felt great. Were you happy with the pricing?
Yeah, no, I was happy with my pricing. They handed me a lot of stuff. A lot of people, I think I'm going to get a new trophy soon. So the trophy that they had there is not the one I'm getting, but so I'm like even more excited to see that. I think for the DLC, the pricing is really good. I'd like to see maybe them like hand out the Mickeys in a non-random order. but obviously like I came in first, so of course I feel that way.
I think there's something to be said. I think that's reasonable though. Like,
Yeah,
I
we
think that's a
thought that
fine take.
too. We thought that even
Um,
before Atlanta.
Yeah, like I think Tomas got, maybe like a Mickey with a good number, and like yeah, that's awesome for him. I'm happy for him, but I can't like lie. I'm like, dang, like I just got the last of the 4. Like they handed the first 3 out and then just gave me
Right,
the one that was
okay.
left, and they were upside down, so I'm not like saying like whatever. But
Yeah.
still.
What number did
I
you
get
get?
it. You just won. Like you should get
264.
Oh, that's
64.
great.
That's great. 264 is great.
Oh no, 264. I thought you said 64. I was like, what?
I thought you
That's
said
amazing.
64 as well.
No. But I think that the pricing for DLC is great. That's why people want to get into the game from other games who are interested in like making money. Like they like think the pricing's great. I think in general, like anytime you're able to avoid paying out money and you're a publisher of a card game and you can actually give cards that the secondary market will provide money for, like you're in a really good spot. And I think that's one of the more promising parts about the pricing in Lorcana. Like they haven't even started marketing yet, and like I think that there's a bunch of Disney heads that aren't even into the game yet, so like maybe they'll like hold their value for a while, or like right now I think the most prize cards are trending down, but it is what it is. And then for the set champs, I think that like the first time around I played in 5 and won 5 stitches, and it was kind of like the moment where I was like, okay, this is gonna happen 3 times a year, and like this is definitely worth investing my time into more seriously even, and going to like all the bigger events. Like once you're gonna practice for like your local stuff, you might as well go to the the bigger things. And yeah, I think that there's definitely some things that they could do better between like the league and the set champs, like to try to make it a good experience for everybody while also like having the pricing that they have for the top end. Like I wish that they kind of gave more like a more strict template to stores to follow. Like I know that they give out one, but I wish it was like even more clear cut on like what they should do. And like also with just running like the league, like some stores, like I think that basically any time you attend league night, you should be able to get a promo, and that should be that. And like whatever needs to happen to like for that to happen is really important to me, because like while the pricing's cool on the DLC level and the store champ level, and I've seen like turnout for those types of events, like my locals at least, it kind of struggles to get people in the door. And like part of it is just that like and like you can obviously talk to a store person and give them advice, but like at the end of the day, people are going to do whatever they're going to do. And I think that most of them just don't realize like how important it is to actually like give something to anybody who's attending so that they keep attending. And like just trying to actually find a model that works for the stores so that their locals can grow.
Do they
Those
not?
are my thoughts on pricing.
I got like
they
a promo
like
at the store.
yeah, so like you get the promo kit, and like some of my stores could hand out a promo to everybody, and they
Oh.
don't, because they just like don't think through it or they don't realize it. But then also like if you ever have too many people,
Mhm.
then you actually wouldn't be able to give a promo to everybody, which was the situation that one of the stores I go to was in for the first promo set. So like it, I'm just saying like whatever it takes to get it done, like they need to find a way so that like anybody who's going to a locals gets something. And yeah, and I think that just isn't impossible to attain. It's just that you just need to help the stores organize it well and give them like advice.
Yeah, I think the same is true of, like I said before, I think for the set championships, I think put the, like, so the Rockstar Stitch, the enchanted one, just put that art on a pin and give that to everyone that plays, so that, like, yeah, okay, maybe you didn't get the actual card, but at least you, like, if you like the character, you like the art, like, you get this really unique thing that is only available if you played in these set championships. So I definitely agree with the sentiment of, like, just give players more of a reason to walk in the door. That helps everybody. Zan, Brennan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I want a pin. I haven't gotten one. Like I've played in like I don't know, like 50 locals.
And you don't have a single pin.
I don't have a single pin.
I got some pins for you, don't worry. Yeah,
Hell
like
yeah.
20. You
What?
tell me which one you want.
Whatever you have a duplicate of, dude. I'll give
Yeah.
you a club. I have a Club Lorcana one. That's the one. I had to order that. I had to make.
I
that
want
one.
I want the shirt. You give me a shirt,
Yeah.
I'll send you a pin.
Oh yeah, dude, I got you.
I got you. But yeah, pricing good. Brennan, you were happy with, like, again, you think it's well stretched out throughout the top cut?
Yeah, for the DLCs, yeah, it's interesting. Strangely enough, the Rapunzel playmat's like the thing I didn't really want to hold on to many of the promos for pricing. That's just like one I just like people don't really have much of an interest in some way, but that's fine. Yeah, like that doesn't not everything has to be awesome, but like the promos are really good. I don't know if it was just me or not. The centering on all the Rapunzels I've seen that are foil are like completely off though. So like I don't know how that's been, but yeah, like every single Rapunzel I've seen is slightly off.
I think the Let It Goes are worse than the Rapunzels.
Really? Okay. But yeah,
But
like
the
they're slightly
Mickeys,
off on them.
all the Mickeys are 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen anything. I haven't seen one less than a 10 so far on those. But
I don't think they
yeah.
exist unless you took the card and messed it up yourself after you got it. Like,
Yeah.
I really think that it'd be like pretty shocking to me if you got a Mickey.
I literally just got back from New Jersey because I went to Golden, and mine's at PSA right now. So I'm like crossing my fingers that I'm not the first one that's not a 10.
Yep.
But yeah, I know you know Hamza. He's one of the Mickey winners in top eight from Atlanta.
Okay.
He got well, his story is kind of funny. He got a 10 on his Mickey from PSA, and his Rapunzel got a 9. And so then he broke it out of the slab, and then
It's like a
sold
public
it.
story.
And sold it, and then the person
regraded?
sold it to got it graded again and got a 10.
Wow.
So I just want.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
you know, that's just like a classic PSA story.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said the mistake was getting the Mickey and the Cinderella, and the Rapunzel graded at the same time.
In the same package as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything
They
will
like
look bad
just
next to
launched.
that.
They just launched grader notes, and they're like providing notes now.
Oh yeah, I
So
heard
there's
about
like
that.
a little bit more oversight into the process.
So, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the pricing's good. I think
Great.
that they need to do more outside of the pricing for the DLCs though, and make it more experiential, like the actual experience. Like, you guys are kind of spoiled in Europe because you have the GamesCon installation with like the book and the pillars and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
like in
wow.
North America, we don't have any
I
of
don't even know
that.
what that
So it's
is.
just like you're just
Yeah,
like in
yes.
a convention room or a hotel.
Yeah,
whatever
true.
room. And I think that they need to do more if they want to get like kids involved. Like there definitely should be like some people and characters or something. Like there just has to be like more going on, and like I'd like to really like see them
Had
go
Peter
like,
Pan.
full capitalism. Honestly, like if you want to pay like an extra $50 to enter so that you can get like the pin that's like made specially for the event that has like some Disney character, like they should allow you to do that. Like they need to like find ways to like get more money for themselves so
Yeah.
that they improve the experience of the event. Like seriously, I mean, not that I had a bad experience, but like I'm a card player, so it's like, you know, you put me in any room, like it don't matter if it's like the basement of like the game store where like you're worried about the ceiling, people walking above you, like, or the other room, like I'm gonna be fine. But that's just not the case for I think like a lot of the Disney clientele.
Yeah, no, I long term, I would definitely I'd like for Worlds at the very least, I want to see akin to what Pokemon do, like whole packages for like everyone that's playing. Like you get like backpacks and caps and t-shirts and a plushie and like loads of stuff, and like that's
Yeah.
long term what I want to see. And obviously, like again, it's Disney. Like how hard is it to get Mickey Mouse to come and raise my hand if I'm the winner? I'm sure you'd have loved that, Brian, for Mickey to just come in and say you're champion. How hard is it, Disney? Come on.
They need to like get the golden Mickey. They need to make it a
Oh
costume.
my
Yeah.
It needs to hand
Solid.
out the Mickeys. Like, can
Exactly,
you imagine the
exactly.
meme potential?
Yeah.
Like,
But-
how much is a golden Mickey costume? It's less than 3K.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I can see
we-
Shannon wearing that.
No, that anything that's going to make it just a more interesting experience, yeah, like you said. So yeah, Brennan, you said you didn't know this. So we have the Illuminary. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of it. Yeah, sorry about that. It is beautiful. It's really nice. Like you get the book and like it's a projector screen, so all the characters animate and show up, and it's a nice photo opportunity. And we had other like billboards and stuff with art, and I would like to see that grow and grow. And I said in my sort of review after I cast Lil, I was like, like from a Disney perspective and a business perspective, I imagine it's just a case of, look, show us X amount of data, and then we will give you this funding, we will clear this, we will let you do this. That is my hope, that like these successful DLCs are what Ravensburger needed to go back to Disney and say, look at all this money. Look at all this money. And
I mean, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I'm optimistic as well.
It's only the beginning, but it doesn't mean I don't want to see it. Like, I still want to see it.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Okay, so we're very happy with the pricing. For DLC, absolutely. For set championships, like I said, I'd like to see a pin for everyone involved. I'd definitely like to see. Again, this isn't a Ravensburg thing. This is more to do with your store in general. But so many places I heard where if you made top 4, you also got the bulk of like booster pricing and things like that. And my opinion is, if I've made top 4, if I've got my promo and my playmat, that's all I need, really. I think booster pricing and anything extra that the store wants to give out should be weighted more down, and so that more people, even past top 8, get more packs and stuff like that to come along. Because if you go along and you get the promo and the playmat, do you really care that you didn't get 8 packs of Ursa's Return?
Yeah, so like you order like the set champ thing from them, and like I don't know, they could like have people pay the distributors a little bit more and like give something to do random giveaways to people who don't win, because like that's just good. And like the store will eat the upfront costs to pay for whatever you're giving away, because they want to run the tournament to get the promos to charge the entry fee. So like if you look at how much they're making versus how much the box is now, like there's so much room there to like increase the box price that they're paying for it or whatever. And or they might be getting it for free now, but like in other games you pay for it. But the point is like there's a way to find it so that you can give away stuff to people. So, you know, potentially everyone who enters gets something, like you said, but you know, at the least like that there's giveaways involved in the event. And then on top of that, like anytime you have a top cut or a cut to some amount of people, and then the prizing doesn't happen till the game after, like you're gonna have, you know, people who are upset about that. So it's like you need to find a way to give something to people who make top cut or, you know, top 8 of an event or whatever, and then lose before top 4. Because like that was, I think, like I know personally know like 2 people who like quit.
Just quit
like
Lorcana.
after they like made a top 8 of like a 50-person one and then didn't win anything and then lost a match. Like they both just like quit. Like straight up, they were like, that felt horrible. And
Yeah,
I mean, like, that's
I can
drastic for me, but you know, still.
Yeah, I remember that with some of the pack events to start before it was in quotes the pack. You know, for that thing, I was like, you need to pay top 16. Like it has to be something. Like she's like, okay. And then when
That
10K,
situation's 2 days too, so it's like anytime you have someone show up for the next day, it's kind of like you got to pay them for their time.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot that goes into it for online events, but that's different. But yeah, for anything like that, I mean, I remember the first Stitch event I played in, I made top 8 and I lost in the top 8. And apparently we split the pricing in the top 8. I'm like, I didn't even know there's extra pricing. I don't care. Like I didn't care. I literally could have, you know, I lost and got something, but I was like, I would rather have just not gotten anything and or just, you know, one more match kind of thing. But like, yeah, it's however the stores will do it. I'm sure they're just growing pains with all this kind of stuff, and they'll figure it out eventually, or they won't, and they won't be a store for very long. Who knows? But
yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, I think Ravensburger can just include it in the kit, and then we don't have to worry about it. The place does it right. Like just give them the like it's like the kit doesn't come with any packs. Like I know the stores have packs, I get all of that, like, and they could just give the packs away, and they're making money on the entry fees. But like, why not just give them the means to just do it? And then charge them more up front so that the experience is consistent across every set champ. So you don't like feel like, oh, I went to this store, they charged 25 and didn't even give a pack, which happened to me. And then I go to another store, they charge like 20 and they give a pack to everybody and they use the kit. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it just doesn't make sense to like allow disparity like that, like on those types of things. You can like definitely find a way to streamline it, I think.
Moving us along to probably a hotter topic, 2-game format. So we moved into this. How long ago since we got the announcement that this was happening?
March.
A couple of March, was it? Brian, I don't know. I haven't seen you speak on this much, particularly. Zan, I've heard you speak on it a little bit. Brennan, I've seen you speak on this a lot, quite passionately, and that is exactly what I would like to speak to right now. Please give me your thoughts on 2-game format versus best of 3. Which do you prefer? Why? Cook.
I prefer best of 3, and it's nothing to do with play draw disparity. It's nothing to do with what I think wins more. It's nothing to do with shortening rounds or anything like that. The 2-game format just doesn't feel satisfactory. No, I mean, if you look at the potential results, is a 2-0, a 1-1, and a 0-2. 0-2 and 1-1 both feel like a loss in playing at big events. To be honest, the 1-1 will feel like a loss to you. If you're ahead the first game and you lose the second one, it's like something got stolen from you. If you're behind, you felt defeated from losing game 1. And you can say again that there's a play draw disparity in this game, and it's slight, but I think it's more skill disparity than play disparity, and also matchup disparity than anything else. And yeah, I've just not been a fan of it in general, especially with the extra point thing, or not the extra point thing. The percentage for tiebreakers going for the second game makes no sense to me, because who's to say both players didn't win going second? Like, it could have been 1-1, but the second game is weighted more for no reason at all. Mm-hmm. It makes no logistical sense, really, but except that they need another tiebreaker, because what they did was create a format where it's way too homogenized as far as the records will look like at the end. So they needed something. And the system itself, if you look at the algorithms of how we've tried to sample and run numbers on how the events are going to play out, people were able to start intentionally drawing, splitting, whatever you want to call it, round 6 of the event. That's really what it
happened in Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. It happened multiple times. I knew the last 3 rounds, most people were splitting. If you look at the last round of the tournament, it was something like they were doing some celebratory thing about how many people are still playing the event, like 85%. But then, like, I would say 75% of those people left were just intentionally split as soon as that announcement was over and walked away from the table because there was no reason to play. It creates a lot of not playing, which I think is the opposite of what they were trying to do. And we have so much data from so many years of how to make a tournament work that I get they're trying something new. I'm glad they're trying something new. I'm not demonizing them for trying something new. I just want them to understand that I think that there was an oversight as to how it felt and what it causes for tournament play. And the most awkward thing in the world is that for about 60% of the tournament starting round 5, you should be conceding after losing game 1 every single time, or else you're both knocking both of each other out. You don't even know it. And that only really rewards people who know what they're doing in a tournament, not newer people. Like, essentially, you're knocking people out at some point if you go 1-1 or anything like that. So just best of 1s from round 5 onwards for more than half the tournament if they want to make any type of top cut. And that whole experience, dealing with people who are newer to the game and more experienced in the game, caused a lot of tense situations from my perspective. People who know what it means to not win the match at that point, people who don't. People who know, kind of getting infuriated, and then people feeling bad about not making that decision after being told the fact, and you can't talk about it during the event or the thing too, because you can't ask for concessions or anything like that. It's a whole mess of things. And the logistical nightmare it's caused in my mind for how tournaments are being run and what it actually means if you want to do well is not worth the payoff that you get to have, in quotes, the play not matter, which sure, it matters, but
are there any matchups where you're favored on the draw?
Any matchups in general? I mean, in theory, yes, like percentage wise, but like overall as a structure, no. Like at best, like you're probably 47% on the draw at most. Like to any given game, like it's hard if you look at matchups differently.
Yeah, I'm just talking like matchups. Like if it was green, steel, mirror, would you rather be in the draw or play?
I mean, I don't know enough to make that call, but I'm not saying you're wrong to say that going first matters so much. It does.
No. I mean, I don't think. I think you're favored on the draw. I just think that like the play draw disparity was like totally. I agree. It was like totally overblown.
Oh yeah.
Like if this was something to solve it, it was like not done well. And I thought that the arguments, like where people were like, oh, they think it's only 3%. That's crazy. I'm like, that doesn't seem that crazy to me. But B. Also, like, if they believe that it was that low, like, why did they make a format and then say we were addressing the concern?
Right.
Because, like, it wasn't a concern.
It's complete hypocrisy then.
Yeah, if there wasn't a concern in the first place. Yeah. Okay,
like, that kind of, like, is a little weird. Yeah, I wasn't trying to like get you with that. I mean, I agree with
No, you're right.
close to what you said, but like I just think it's funny because like to me, I think that there are matchups where you actually might be favored on the draw, and that to me like already kind of like goes against the mentality a lot of people have of like you're always better on the play period.
I mean,
But
like
I think
last format, yeah, like Amber Steel, I think was better against Blue Steel going second because your bare necessities and benders lined up perfectly against their draws were on the play. It hampered your draw in some way, made you play off curve, and like your cards just didn't line up the right way and play. Like it mattered who went first or second, like, but it didn't
Benja
matter the
versus
way you
Quill.
thought half the time. Yeah, Bender and
Yeah.
Quill, bare necessities versus Quill, other things like that. Even just getting to know, like, essentially, you get some information about what you're playing into to how to even start your turn can matter a bit. And I think a lot of the data they're using was the online data. And I think what we saw there is mostly skill difference, honestly. I think if you look at that overall, there was a lot of people who really knew how to play the game, and a lot of people who really didn't. And that was amplified by play draw,
The
but not
matches also
necessarily a
don't
true.
matter.
Yeah, it was also it was mostly amplified by skill, and the matches, yeah, it was really skewed. I mean, you can't.
I mean, I played a lot of Pixelborn right before that like talking point came
Yeah.
out with the data, and like I was playing Amber Steel in set 2 aggro, and like people would just concede if they were on the draw versus me. Like people
What?
didn't even want to play the game out, like
Yeah.
at GM. Like some of them, they're like, "Oh, I'm already behind." Like it doesn't matter because there's 4. You know, like also there was a situation where if you lost the first game, you just like scoop it. You know, like because you have to win 4 in a row to get 10 points.
Yeah.
So there's like
Yeah.
gaming that system as well, and like I think the data was just totally
Yeah.
unreliable.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just basically only played hardcore.
This is before that mode even existed. He's talking about the data from that.
Oh,
mode.
Yeah, I
With
mean,
the-
oh,
with
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
decision was made before hardcore even existed.
Oh
to go
yeah,
to
yeah.
2 game.
I was also saying that the data should have just been for like the top 100 players. I think it would be a little bit different as well.
Yeah, because
maybe-
you have to
maybe.
imagine that people in that mode that it's hard for them to make that call too because they're addressing data about something that's not supposed to exist, kind of thing. You know, they can't make that call
Yeah.
realistically, and who knows what the powers that be, how that came
I
about.
mean, I
But
talked to Brennan about it before, and it sounds
Yeah.
like you also do some playing of Pixelborn while you're working, and like I'll just
Yeah.
like scoop a game. Like I don't care at all.
Oh.
Like a Pixelborn ladder match means nothing, so I just think the stats overall are just like not that reflective of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Where like in Hearthstone, you qualify off the ladder, so it's like
yeah,
Oh yeah.
the games are huge. Like the top, if you're in the top 100 and you're playing games, like you're both taking it serious. You know, at that point in the game's history, so it's, the
Oh, I
data
know,
is
yeah.
hella reliable compared to now.
Thing I kind of hope they do that in the future. I want some ladder qualifications.
It's a blessing and a curse.
yeah.
I mean, Magic does it.
Hey, just give me the client first, then I'll worry about if I can qualify the world for worlds
Yeah,
with it.
seriously.
Okay, but overall, is it safe to assume then we are all deep in the pocket of best of threes would be better overall?
I think the best argument against best of 3 is the time argument, and
Sure.
like that's not even the one you hear the most often. And like also like it's just I get how people have feelings, but there's math involved, and like it's just more reliable to have a best of 3 to find the skillful players at the end.
I need
Like,
to
it's
remember
just,
that when I'm feeling sassy. I know you've got feelings, but math exists.
I mean, like on some level, like this is like the reality of
Yeah.
like how often the better players make it to top cut in a best of 3 versus the 2 game format that we have now. And then my only other thing was like, I actually like a lot of what they said about making the experience good for new players, but then it's like I said earlier, like get more experiential stuff going. Actually, if you want to do that, like right now, you give an extra point if you go 2-0, like just scrap that point because that's like more complicated, and like just make it games. Like you played 2 games against the same person, you played 18 games, I won 11 games, that person won 10 games, and then there's some number of tiebreakers, and one of them is definitely not who won game 2. I agree with that. And then like you're in a good spot because it's like way easier for me to talk to you about my experience at the tournament. Yeah, I had to win 13 games or whatever. I had to win 11 games to make it, and I won 10. Hopefully next time I go, I win 11. It's easy to set goals for yourself. It's easy to talk about your experience. It's easy to understand what's going on, what to expect, and like that makes it way better for everybody who's not super serious. Like Brennan said, like if I sit down against somebody, the chance that I know how the standings work and tiebreakers work and the format works and what I need to do to make top cut is like, you know, pretty high. Like versus like I play against people who might not have any idea, and they might not even be bad at the game. They just don't know about tournaments because they haven't played in them for 20 years or whatever. And I think that like getting rid of all of that gamification of that and like the game theory there is just like a positive. So if they really like want to make a format like this, like just take away the extra point, make it games, pick your like 3 tiebreakers that are reliable, and then just like let it fly.
I want to talk about your DLC deck list that you ran at your separate event. So Brennan, you ran Sapphire Steel to top 8 at DLC in Chicago. So just to start us off, what led you to that choice?
Math. It was a deck I felt comfortable playing against most decks in the metagame. I felt comfortable playing against Green Steel, which was one of the better matchups, which is why I chose the deck, because I thought of how good that deck was by comparison to the rest of the field. Earlier, touching on what Zan was talking about, being a level ahead. It's one of the decks I feel happy sitting against. You know, I'm glad to have that matchup, even going second, you know, in a best of 3 scenario. But yeah, I had game against pretty much everything. I looked at kind of the data I had from that event there. I think I played 20 something games in the tournament, and kind of talking to the play draw disparity in some way. I won every single game I went first, and I won half of the games going second. So I was 6-6 going second, and then 100% going first. And it was like 13 going first, something like that. That's like the record you need to do well. And that's one of the decks I felt like I could beat everything going first, especially. Just it has a very high snowball capability. Songs kind of do that. You know, Whole New World is a heck of a card when you pair it with Fishbone Quill for sure. But yeah, I thought I had matchup game against a lot of decks, and I felt comfortable playing it in the 2-game format specifically, just because I could, you know, leverage I think the on the play game, and then do well enough going second with some certain card choices. I made like Babooms and the Brooms to combat Diablos or Flynn's or something like that. I played, and yeah, I liked it. Could beat everything I thought was going to be there, and I did. So
I like the scuttle as well, which obviously helps you search for items. How did that perform though overall? Because like when I remember when I was reviewing your list going through Chicago, I was saying that like as well as being obviously it's nice if you can find your fishbone or find the dime when you need it, or even just get you closer to dime just from building the bottom of your deck. But but at the same time, like if I'm against Sapphire Steel, I know how strong Tremaine can be and be King Undisputed. So like just having access to a second to like just more cheap characters that you could flood the board with, was that also part of what led you to that double broom, double scuttle?
Yeah, I'm not playing Smee in my deck list because I was taking it a different way than traditionally Blue Steel had been being played, which was much of a kind of tempo deck in some way where they'd smeeze and some other things to get aggressive early. I was playing it much more like Ruby Sapphire does with their own deck. And Scuttle is there. It's, I will say, probably most of the time just ink. But in Sapphire Mirrors and specifically, the most important card is Lucky Dime. And even if I'm playing it mid to late game, putting 4 cards that are not Lucky Dime to the bottom of my deck is great. And I never really played it on turn 2 when I needed something or I had nothing else to do, and my ink wasn't, you know, in jeopardy of not being able to make all my drops. So it's fine. Yeah, it definitely buffers against Tremaine and be King Undisputed for sure. That came up several times in the event, which is crucial for some of your singers like Hogsworth and Tinkerbell and things like that. So it's not something I think was perfect, but for the event we played in, it was right for me. And that may not be the case going forward, but it was good. It was good for the event that I played in. So. And
if anyone was thinking that they want to take Sapphire Steel, your exact list, into their, whether it's Germany next week or whatever event they've got coming up, are there any particular advice you could give them for running this list? Any particular lines you want to watch out for? Maybe certain matchups, or just any advice you could give someone to like master this deck? Other than practice.
Well, practice, I think planning is a big one. You can kind of play the deck, any of the Sapphire decks really, very differently, whether or not you, in your opening 7, have a ramp effect or not. If you have one jump ahead or Quill, you can look at your mulligans entirely different at that point. You can kind of just do less digging and more just making sure I can play my cards kind of thing. Like I do this more often. I think personally, I'm the most conservative mulliganer that exists in this game. I think. I don't hard mulligan for things unless I absolutely have to in certain matchups, but I don't really even do that all the time. Like for example, in my top 16 match, I was playing against Ruby Sapphire, and I had a Quill in my hand, and I had 2 copies of Boom and a copy of Smash, and I just kept all 3 of them. Just like, these are my first 3 inks. I'm not drawing them later in the game now, and they're not good in the matchup, so they're just ink. So like, I'm not digging for certain things. I'm just making sure my deck has cards in it that I actually want to draw in some ways, and my rest of my hand
sure
had
you
some
can play the
serviceable
game.
cards. Yeah, and yeah, there's just something to mulliganing that is different for every person, and I might be again too conservative at times, but yeah, just be cognizant of what you're doing and how it affects the later game too. But
Nice.
changes. Maybe one of the aerials can go. Maybe over just for a bell. They serve similar functions.
That's exactly what I was
One's
gonna ask
inkable.
you.
Yeah, bell
Yeah.
might be better for ink purposes. Aerial was fine into a theoretically more heavy red-blue matchup or metagame, but that's the only thing I think the only thing I regretted in the event was having 2 aerials. I think I'd rather have 1 and 1. That was the only regret during the event. After the event, it may be right to play 2 bells just in general, but not something I would fault anyone for not doing. But that was the only change I'd make at the event if I could do that event over.
Brian, Zan, your thoughts and experience with Sapphire Steel before we move on to another list?
It was the deck that I was gonna play on the flight over, and
Okay.
by the time the flight landed, there was 0% chance I was gonna play the deck.
Why? 0.
I really felt like in a best
Long
of 2
flight.
format.
It
I
was
just
a long
wanted to
flight.
play something proactive.
I think it is proactive, honestly, but
Like I wanted
that's-
something that makes your opponent go, "Hey, I need to answer this or I lose." And so I decided my 2 decks were either I'm playing green steel or I'm playing purple steel, and I just felt like what do you call it? Blue red was gonna be the most popular deck, and that's what made my choice. But I ended up playing against green steel 6 times, and I finished 1 game short. So
Better you than me against the green steel. Yeah, no, I mean, I like blue steel. I was interested in hearing exactly what you touched on about the bells. I think that the bell is probably better than Ariel right now. You can play like 2 bell, 1 Ariel, maybe even. I think Rise of the Titans is an interesting card that people talk about, but I actually think because you have Whole New World, I really like keeping one of those in. And then, you have 3 Tamatoa, but the other thing just being like, the 3 Baboom and stuff. Like, do you think that the fact that it's 2 game and you're on the play once and the draw once like affects your deck list?
a little
in
bit, yeah.
general?
Baboom is pretty crucial, and I may want to 4th at some point in time just to be against when going second against Ruby Amethyst. You need to kill the Flins.
Yeah,
the big thing.
exactly.
Mm.
That's what I was thinking about when you
yeah.
said you kept those cards in your hand, and like that's actually
that was
one of the
against
things.
That was against Red
Ruby
Blue. I just kept
Sapphire.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just kept them bank it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one of the things I think that 2 game actually does that makes it a little bit more interesting. Is it's more rewarding to like have a deck that does both the play and the draw compared to the previously, which I think is an interesting deck building thing, even though it's subtle.
Nice. Let's move along and take a look at. So Zan, I know that you played. Well, let's start off with Atlanta. Obviously, it's a different format. We were still under set 3 for that. But you played FluteSong. What led you? Again, we're going to a prior format, but what led you to that FluteSong choice?
I mean, I had the most amount of success with the deck. Besides that, I felt like it had game against everything. Obviously, blue-red was your worst matchup, but I think I had a big enough sample size on Pixelborn, and I was winning majority of them. I was winning, I think, 53%. And if that's my worst matchup and I can just dodge that, then I feel like it's a pretty free tournament. So, so that's why I ended up on number 2.
Yeah, and it did really. Obviously, it won Lil as well, courtesy of Frank Carsten. So a strong performance from it. How do you feel about FluteSong in set 4? Have you? I remember watching. I remember watching one of your videos going over set 4. But you've not stuck with it, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I tried really hard. I tried every combination, every build that performed well. I think that people still take too much stock into tournaments. I think that you can just get the perfect bracket, right? Like a great example is this 10K this past weekend. I think like people were like, oh, the 10K, Green Steel didn't win. And I was like,
That's
I
'cause
was
it
supposed
missed
to play
Bucky.
against yeah, I was supposed to play against Kendall. Kendall ended up making top 4. I just scooped to him. And the Green Steel players, basically all the Green Steel players got knocked out by other Green Steel players, but somehow the weirdest versions of Green Steel, like there's this player that was playing Under the Sea,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then they had cut like Diablos, like one drop Diablos and 2 drop Ursulas, and I was just really confused. And that person I know took out 3 other Green Steel players who were playing, I thought, superior lists. But every time I would walk over, the person would be like Under the Sea, and it would be like the best card I like ever seen. So I think that anomalies sometimes just happen in tournaments, and yeah, we should just stop taking too much stock into, like, purple yellow winning Atlanta. That person, I think, didn't play against a single steel deck the entire tournament.
Yeah,
So
I mean the Ruby Amethyst list from the 10K, I think dodged Bucky all day from my understanding. In Chicago, you played Amethyst Steel, right?
yep, I played Amethyst Steel.
So what led you to that?
Well, I felt like if you could, if I think that the format is blue red versus green steel, I wanted to figure out what the scissors of the format was, and so purple steel. I just played against a bunch of blue red and green steel with my roommates in Chicago, and I just 10-0'd both of them, and I was like, like like you only live once. I'm gonna take a gamble, and I mean, like, it was literally a coin flip, and I was like, all right, I'll go with purple steel, but I could have just as easily played green steel. It was that close. But I don't regret my decision. I think that it was a solid deck. The way I felt about the whole tournament was like, dang, if this was a best of 3 tournament, or if I did limp into day 2, with one more game win, that I had a pretty solid chance at making it far in that tournament, because I don't know, that purple steel list against the decks that existed in that day 2 was just, it was nice.
And finally, Brian, taking first place with the deck which has been 90% of our topics and conversations, Green Steel. So, yeah, I feel like you've kind of already answered this in terms of, like, what led you to that deck, just because it seems like the most... It's just... Go on, in your own words. What led you to Bucky?
Well, I was already playing Green Steel last set too, so it's really not like...
a huge dramatic
that
change.
deck builds itself, the Bucky version, kind of, but there's still like tech cards and stuff. But I think that I know that the blue steel can be like proactive, but I do think that, like, for me personally, when I go into an event like that, where I think there's actually potentially a lot of, like, let's say people with less experience, or like less likely to have meta decks and stuff, I think I err towards trying to do something proactive, where it's like, okay, they're gonna have to answer my green cards. It's like immediately I invalidate all the other decks that like might just be rogue. Like any rogue aggro deck is not gonna like have a good time against me. Like, and that's like a huge one for me. Like, I can't bring red blue and then like see a Lilo, and like that's the end of the game. Like, I just
your
don't have
tournament
it
run.
in me. Like,
all that investment, all that time, you lost to a Lilo because you played blue red. Yeah, I get you.
And I would play blue red if I thought it was like out far the best deck, but for me, like, I would just err towards like green steel, and I'd already been playing it, so I think it's good. And I think that I mean, just like Zan said, I mean, it comes down to what you play against too. Like, in Atlanta, I played green steel, and I just played tons of mirrors, and I think that in a best of 3, I definitely would have made top cut. But then I go to Chicago, and I played 0 mirrors in the entire tournament, you know? And it's
Oh,
like, you
really?
look at my deck list, and it's perfect for that. Like, I don't have grabber swords. I'm running like the big Flins. Like, I don't have any Tinkerbell. It's like, you know, I got put in the right position, and then I also had the right list.
Yep.
And then, you know, like, I played well. Yeah, it's like the trifecta. So like, and, you know, that's like ultimately, like, you know, the majority of the time at the end of the tournament, like, the person who won is going to probably accomplish all 3 of those things. And then, you know, with the top 64, it's a situation where when you look at the deck spread and the bracket from the beginning and you like simmed it, it's like if the person in my position playing green steel makes it through the first like 2, like I played blue steel, blue red, like once you make it through those 3, you stand a really good chance of being the winner, because like all the red purple were knocking out the red blues, and I think personally that I have like an insane matchup against red purple. And then in the finals I was able to play green purple, which I also like my matchup for. And like, why did I get to play those decks? Well, because they all beat red blue, and that's why they were there. So like, once I won my first 3 matches, I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah, just briefly on the day. I do want to move along in a moment, but just briefly, if there were many count changes to your list. I see you've got the 1 Baboom, the 2 Hidden Cove, and the 1 Zeus in particular. It's like just all you felt you needed. Did that change much in your testing before the event?
Yeah, I think that the 2 directions I was gonna go were potentially 2 Babooms like I'd played in set 3. I also had 2 Zeus in there one time. I was never really playing Grab Your Swords. I mean, it's good in the mirror, but I don't really like it anywhere else. I think that, you know, for a lot of people, when they look at my list, the thing they want to take out is the 1-drop Flynn. That's like, you know, obviously some of the first cards that you would cut from that deck. I think in general though, like if you try to do too much to get fancy against other stuff, that you're really actually hurting your red blue matchup. Keeping it super streamlined and having like 3 of the 4-drop Flynn and the Ursula 3 like sudden chill availability, like I think that this kind of stuff is like good against red blue. So I kind of just, even moving forward, I'm worried about putting in more cards to deal with the mirror. But if I was going to, it would probably be another Zeus. And I know other people have played the second Zeus. I think Zan played 2 Zeus last weekend. I think that card's just solid. It has, if you have to answer Diablo with it, so be it. But it also kills a beast, which is huge.
Yeah.
So, and also like, I personally hate Robin Hood shift lines. Like,
Oh, really?
so I was almost gonna play no Robin Hood 1 and play Flynn, but the Robin Hood 1, like being 2 attack, is really good versus red purple actually. So I think that's kind of like not something you can do. But
There's a couple of questions I want to ask you. Number 1 question is, what is the least amount of Floodborn that you would play in this deck?
I'm gonna have to go count.
You have 21.
Yeah, 21.
21.
Yeah.
Then that's probably what I would stick with. Like, I actually like the 6/4 drops. I don't like going down on those, and like I think having the 4 more frequently is like better than having the Tink personally. And like, yeah, I think the 3 cards I'd most likely take out of my deck are like Flynn 1, and then Baboom.
Yeah, I will say, like, my list was a little bit biased because my locals are just like hardcore copying whatever I play, and so if I'm playing green steel, there was like just a group of people that were going to be playing green steel, and I felt like I needed to, at first I wasn't playing any big tinks, and I felt like I needed to put them back in.
You got 2 now, right? Yeah,
because I just anticipated way more mirrors than the average meta, more than challenge.
I think once you put in Tinkerbells, you really need to be playing like at least 1 Grabber Swords, if not more. And once you play Grabber Swords, you're actually really wanting to play Tinkerbells. And like, those cards like work well together against like purple-red boards, you know, like a bunch of, you know, stuff. Even like the mirror, like dealing 3 is, you know, the option to deal 3 and stuff. But I think that combo of like Grabber Swords, Tink, and those 2 cards in general are like a lot stronger in wheel decks, where you're like getting new hands and like looking for options on how to like deal with things, and you have lots of cards. Like, I don't know if I really I just worry about people changing their lists and adding all the the spice, like their matchup versus red blue. I think like it can
Yeah.
suffer fast.
That's one of the reasons why I didn't cut any of like the Aladdins. Just played all straight 4.
Yeah, you
Still
play 4.
playing. Yeah, still playing straight 4. Sudden chill. Still playing. I'm playing 2, and I tried playing 3, but that also became like a bad top deck in those weird situations. But obviously insanely good in blue red. But yeah, like the only match I felt like I couldn't like mulligan, like couldn't figure out a way to beat was the mirror. And one thing that I figured out was like, oh, if I keep like a Robin Hood hand, like where I have like turn 1 Robin Hood, turn 2 Robin Hood, and I can just shift and go grab your sword. I felt like in those matchups they were not keeping Ursula on 2, they were always playing the Bucky on 2. And like I tried to set that up in one of my camera matches, I think my last one, and he just had like the Diablo play plus the 2 let the Storm Rage on to kill both my Robin Hoods. But I felt like I was like, okay, if he doesn't have like the not just the nuts but the super mega nuts, then I just get to win this game just because of that shift and to grab your swords. But yeah, basically I feel like I can't lose to anything but the mirror match. That's like what I really feel like.
I mean, I like green steel, so I'm not gonna. I love listening to how much you think it's good.
Oh, it's insane, dude. It's like the best.
Yeah, no. I mean, the Cove is like a game changer. I think that like, for me, like, yeah, I could have played grabber swords and stuff, but since I was, at least in my opinion, at Chicago specifically, like I was one of the people playing like 3, like I don't know how many people played 3 Flynn. Or like 2 Flynn even.
Not many.
And like that card's actually good in the mirror.
It's insane in the mirror.
Like, and like so for me, I was like, this card's good versus red blue. It's actually solid in the mirror. It's good versus red purple to close them out at the end, and like it also can attack a castle and not die. And I was just like, this card's like has to be something I'm like focused on doing in Chicago. So and I think that like I just relied on that more than I did like grabber swords and these cards that are a little bit more like focused on green steel. And then like I said, I got lucky and didn't play any green steel, so it panned out, well like that. So
based off of just tournament data recently and just how things are going, what would you expect the meta split to be going into Germany? Brennan, any thoughts that you could give us for that?
Yeah, I think harkening back to the beginning of the session here, we're talking a lot about how the data is going to move pretty slowly throughout, and then we're going to see the biggest shift in how data is going to move is after the release of set 5. But for this next event, I expect to see a lot of the same. It's unlikely that a lot of people are going to be able to brew up something that we've not seen or looked at or can really compete. I think that's also another reason that not having an online client is not great, because you're not going to have the time, again, like we talked about, to really throw your idea at the wall so hard that eventually something sticks. And you don't have the time. You don't have the time or the ability to do that against people who are playing. Your hotel mate is not going to be sitting against you till 1 a.m. practicing against your rogue deck when they should be sleeping, kind of thing. It's just the truth of the matter. So I expect to see much of the same. I'll call it the big four, because I think I wrote something about that at one point the other, where it's just blue steel, ruby sapphire, ruby amethyst, and green steel. I think they're the most popular decks by a bit. Yeah. Probably, again, kind of talking to what we expect to see. Ruby sapphire has been the most played deck and the highest conversion rate deck in all the big events we've seen, pretty much period, since the start of the format. It's the most powerful deck as far as things that it does in the late game. And sometimes it can be hard to disrupt, and even when you do disrupt it, they can just top deck Medusa into Dragon into Maui into Beef Pair, whatever. They have a lot of really good top end that's hard to come back from. So I don't expect much to change, honestly. There's yammerings of like some other decks. We saw the Amber Ruby deck that was kind of cool, and I don't know how much that'll pull going forward, but stuff like that is hard to break the mold of what we've seen so far, the decks that have been played hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours. But no, I expect to see some good games. Maybe there'll be some things here and there, that some unique choices in those color pairs, but nothing really game breaking, to be honest. But I'm happy to be proven wrong here, for sure.
Yeah.
In Chicago, green steel was 24%. I think I think the most was blue red, which was uh I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 38%, which was like a lot.
Hmm.
I think the number one thing that we forget about online compared to paper is cost. Cost is a major
Yep.
factor for a lot of players, and so I think that I would be surprised if green steel gets higher than 25%. Um, and I think that if it was an online event, which was free cards, green steel would have a higher percentage. So I think that's
Hmm.
the thing that's going to keep it from breaking that 25%. I think blue red will continue to be, I think blue red will fall from 38%. Um, and I think purple red has proven itself, and I think purple red will be mm, a much bigger, closer to the green steel amount. And I think that blue steel will remain to be less than 20% of the decks played.
Nice. Brian, anything to add on that?
Yeah, not much. I have friends who are going, so I've been talking to them, Europeans. It seems to me like there might be a higher percentage of people there willing to spend the money to get
Ooh.
like green steel from what they've told me. Like French players play in French tournaments and stuff, and those are a little bit larger and happen more frequently. You know, like
Hmm.
with like in America, I can't go like I gotta fly to play with Zan. But
Yeah.
in like France, like it's like okay, I have to go like 4 hours on a train or something. It's
Mm.
not as big of a deal. Or like 3 hours. Like my friend can go from Germany to France in 5 hours. So it's
Yeah,
like
it's more viable. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like those events actually get a decent amount of like players from the area to them or whatever. Like and I don't know, there's like a decent turnout of green steel. But I think in America, like the money is definitely a huge limiting factor. And I think in general, like as you see the price of green steel cards climb up, like that's how people are preparing to go bring it to like a big tournament. Like if it goes from 66, or like Beast is like I haven't checked today, but like he's above 60 bucks, And if he keeps
Yeah.
going up and up and up, like exactly what's going on. Like it's not
People
a
are buying
surprise. Like people are buying the cards, and then the market's having to find more sellers and stuff, and like that deck is gonna probably be more common than like we think it is. Like if the price continues to grow. But like even that's something that like I actually keep tabs on. Like Brennan said at the beginning of this, like data and analyzing stuff is that's what I think. Like once you have a certain level of execution, like that's kind of one of the things that makes a difference. So it's like I am looking into like are the card prices from green steel trending in such a way that I think like Dallas is actually going to see like a lot of them, and I need to include cards for the mirror match. And like I don't know how else to like really predict the meta for somewhere like Germany, than like trying to like analyze like the local scenes and some like market trends or whatever it is. I think for us in Dallas, like maybe if a rogue deck comes out in Germany, then people will like copy it or figure it out, so Dallas could shift drastically. But I think for this one, like the meta is going to look the same, and then if the rogue deck does pop out and do well, like you might see a new good deck in Dallas. But like I don't have to worry about that until Germany's over, so it's not even something.
That's what I mean, because that's why like I'm hesitant. Probably not going to ask you too much to state what you think you'd be playing for your DLCs, although like you can, but at the same time this is probably the biggest pile of data that a lot of people will draw from, which may influence their choices for Texas. So
I mean, other than the set champs, it's basically the only piece of data that's big.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So what percentage would you have to anticipate like Germany or Dallas to have like for people to be playing green steel, for you to make changes to your green steel deck to hedge against the mirror? Like
I'd say like if we're getting closer to 25, I'm interested in like trying to put some of the flex cards in, but I don't know if I'm adding like Tink and Grabber Swords until I think it's like over that, honestly. Like I just don't think that these cards are like as good in the mirror as other people do. Like I do think that like they can close a mirror out against somebody who's making themselves susceptible to like Grabber Swords or whatever, but just in general, like I think the Cove is actually like really spicy answer to that, and it's something that I think most people agree should be in the deck as a 2 of at least.
Yeah.
And like there's the
I
ability
played 2.
to like play
Would you ever
around
go to
it.
3? I tried.
I mean,
I was
you know,
on
like
3.
I didn't play 3 in Chicago, so I don't think I would. But like for a location that doesn't have lore and something that's so trash at the end of the game, when you don't have a
Yeah.
board, it's like a
Yeah.
surprisingly good card still. Like, and I think that really comes down to how reliant Red is on attack-based removal in the current Red-Blue list, and like
Yeah.
I think the cards outperformed what I thought it would originally.
Nobody
like,
plays
that's one
around
of the
it.
cards I tested. Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where it's like how like do you play around it? Like you mentioned earlier, like some hand you had played out or whatever in the mirror, and like I was just thinking like just in general, like Diablo on 1, shift Diablo without Bucky on a Cove is like really good as well versus Red Blue. Like people sleep, like it's like arguably
Oh yeah,
like
it's insanely
probably
good.
a higher win rate than like playing Bucky even, honestly. Like I don't know, like cuz like you can still play Bucky on 2 or on 3 and then like have a 4 drop and like a 5 drop or whatever, and like your Diablo never dies. And like I think that, you know, a lot of people, I agree, like Brennan said, he's a conservative mulliganer. Like I don't like hard mulliganing for things, and I think people don't keep enough cards like personally. But like also I think people don't want to opt into like this idea where like my Diablo is going to get a bunch of value and now I'm in a good position in the game, but the game's also going to last 15 turns, not like 7. Like it's so easy to just want to win by like playing Bucky and then just going pop 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 pop, sudden chill, and like the game's done and like you either top deck or it's over, and like, you know, it was easy. Like I don't shy away from like the like longer games.
I will say with Green
think
Steel,
that
I
Cove
want to
knows
mulligan
that.
like insane. I'm like, like my average is probably 5.
Average cards mulligans is a good stat. I wish like Pixelborn had that when it was.
Oh
around.
yeah. I'm always
Like
I love thinking about that with decks.
I don't
That's
know.
great.
I like there's cards I keep that other people don't, and I like Raging Fire, Ursula 3-drop versus like Blind, and like that's another thing, like in a best of 2 versus or a 2-game format versus best of 3, like the blind mulligan is like such a huge thing, and like understanding what your blind mulligan looks like as well, and like what it should be against the field is a huge way to improve your like record at a DLC. Because like online for a long time you know what the deck is and stuff, and like when you don't, it really does like you should just have a good idea of what you should do against a blind like opponent. Like, you don't know what deck they're playing.
Brennan, if you were going to play Germany, what would you play?
I'd probably play Blue Steel again. Sapphire Steel, I liked it. It's something I'm comfortable with. I played it on and off since set 1. I'm very comfortable with the lines that it has. Maybe some of the changes we talked about, Ariel and Bell kind of thing. No, it's
but you think the list
just
is still in a good position to succeed? For
sure. Yeah, and kind of talking about, you know, cards when you blind mulligan. Well, I know one jump ahead's probably good against anything I play against. I don't have to think about it. You know, Quill is something I'm going to keep. I don't really care what you're playing. I'm going to keep it. You know, things like that, where you make it easy on yourself by playing certain decks where you have just a game plan. And I guess when I say proactive, I didn't mean much in the way of ending the game quickly to answer a bunch of threats, but that I know what I'm going to do on these points in the curve no matter what the matchup is, pretty much. That I don't have to make the hard decisions early for me a lot of times. That's proactive. It's proactive in a way that it has its curve and it doesn't matter. It doesn't care what you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. This is what I'm doing. Good luck, you know, kind of thing. And
the blue steel cards are definitely more proactive than the blue red. Like
for sure.
There's just no way.
I can't touch blue red. I can't do it. I will not bring myself to play that deck pretty much ever. It's not my jam.
No, fair. Zan, what would you play if you were going to play Germany tomorrow? Well, it's not tomorrow, but you get a point.
Green Steel.
Green Steel.
Yeah, not close.
2 buys, got it.
I mean, like, honestly, like, yeah.
I've yet to lose to that matchup.
anytime, bud.
Yeah, that's the next video. So like, I would play Green Steel, but I mean, Blue Steel is interesting to me. I mean, just like hearing you go back and forth, like a couple things. One, like obviously you played Wheels, but like, what do you think of the non-wheeled deck list? And like,
I was
also,
gonna get to that.
What do you think about like the green steel versus wheel or the green steel versus non-wheel blue steel matchup, like how does it change if at all?
Well, I looked at the list that didn't play wheel and I kind of laughed at them and I moved on with my life because I don't think that. Here's the simple philosophy. I've taken this from Magic. I played it at some Pro Tours and some like ideas from Deck Decision. If there's talks of a card needing to be banned in any way, and some people have said that wheel should be banned, you should be playing the card that people think should be banned. Diablo, Bucky, people think it should be play the card. That's just a logical thing to do. If it's so good, people think it should be removed from the game. You should just be doing it. And no one's ever said about banning Maurice's Workshop. I'm not like, come on. I'm not even considering.
Well, there's a non-wheel list that doesn't play Maurice's Workshop. Like the guy I played in top 64, he played How Far I'll Go, and it's actually like surprisingly tricky against green steel because he gets the Tinker out a turn earlier.
Sure.
Like it's just interesting. I'm not talking about the item list. I think item blue steel in particular. Item blue red I think is a little bit better, but item blue steel is not a real deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't be venturing away from a whole new world. It's a good card, and I don't know. It's.
Are you 60-40, 70-30? What are you against green steel?
Oh, in matchups. Before Peanut Pixel 1-1A, it was like, I don't know. I delete my records all the time and restart over just for new data and just like fresh.
It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just.
It was like 75% win, like it kind of drawn it like roughly around there. And like, I played a bunch of testing versions with versions of the deck I didn't really like as well, and I was like 9-1 against some of my test partners. Just like, all right, well, I guess I'll do this. And I mean. But like to say that you're 9-1 or 75% in games doesn't mean the matchup's like 75%. It means like the matchup's probably like 60% in my favor. Like people understand how to use percentages when it's talking about how favored you are on any given game versus the actuality. Like I could be 60% but win 10 out of 10. Like I could be 10-0 against them, but I'm still probably 60% in the matchup at the worst or somewhere around there. But percentages are
also
funny.
Playing someone who's like playing perfectly or whatever. No, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm happy to go 1-1 against blue steel as the green steel player. Like
really?
That's like obviously I want to go 2-0, but like that's a win honestly because like you're only gonna play so many of them in the tournament. And I think it is like my worst matchup. Like
really?
I actually do think it's my worst matchup. So like I want to see it the minimal amount, and when I see it, like I like am happy to win a game.
In Chicago, I was 8-1 in games against green steel.
I love that matchup. I have yet to lose a game to blue steel, but maybe I've been getting lucky. I will say there's a big distinction in the blue steel deck. If they don't play one jump on turn 2, it feels like it's not even playing the same game as you. So the thing I want to see is like how many games do you win when you don't play one jump on 2? Like the deck doesn't even feel the same.
Yeah, I don't think one jump's a card I care too much about, especially going second. It's not even that good. Like Quill's not even that good in the matchup either. Like I often will just ink all my Quills. Like in the matchup, you just.
I'm assuming it's just about removing the like whatever you think that you're doing is so powerful. He's just gonna remove it with Baboom or Smash on 2 and 3. I mean, he plays 2 Smashes, right, which is outside of the norm for blue steel players.
You need to kill
the only play pattern
your list a lot.
The play pattern that I really struggled with was obviously. Popsicle on one jump, Hiram, right? Yeah. Like that's the thing I struggle with, not the removal aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to play test some games anytime, really. Like if we ever get a chance to do some webcam games like that, I got another camera set up. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We can talk about that all day. It's not really what I think is favorite. I don't really care who's favorite in that sense. I know my game plan, and I'm just gonna move on from that. So it's
I think that that's completely reasonable. I was just interested in your thoughts. I mean, there's people who are good who are saying like green steel is not a good deck. I get in this call, and all 3 people are like it's far and out the best deck. But you also are gonna play blue steel because you think it beats green steel. So like like I'm just interested in
hey, that's
how you think
that's what I want to encourage here again. Like Zach, I know firsthand that Zach Bivens is sat at home going, "Hey, you're all wrong. Steel Amber Songs is the best deck. Get over it." And maybe he's right, but at the same time, we're not all Zach Bivens. But my point being is like it is nice to have just polite disagreement between top players, and like if we're not doing that, then how are we improving our skill set and the game? So.
is all three of us think Green Steel is the best deck, and I think all three of us said that Blue Steel might be like the next deck, or like, well, Brennan's gonna play Blue Steel, but like me and Zan said that Blue Steel was a deck that we both thought about playing. So, I mean, I think
did.
like overall we have a pretty good like unity
Idea on what
because a lot of people like love
what
blue
people
red,
should be
right?
playing. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so if you're doing Germany, consider Green Steel or Blue Steel is kind of the verdict of the group. These are the best places to go. Amazing. To finish us off, obviously the focus here has been the actual game of Lorcana, but it is a Disney game. Now, I would like to assume that you are all... you don't have to be the most passionate Disney fan in the world, but we've all seen a Disney film at some point in our life, I would hope. And we like a bit of Disney on this channel. Brennan, I know you dressed up as Peter Pan for your particular event. Is that a good clue as to what you're going to tell me your favourite Disney franchise is?
No, not at all.
It's not? Okay, so go on, tell me. What's your favourite? What's your favourite?
My favorite movie is Lilo and Stitch, I think. Or
Nice.
favorite character is Stitch. My favorite movie is actually the Aladdin.
Nice.
Bye, buddy. Yeah, I've always liked that. And one of my favorite movies to watch. I watch it with my daughter. She's 5 now.
Nice.
And yeah, we've watched a bunch of Disney movies, but love Stitch the character, love Aladdin the movie. So.
And a song from either of them or a different one? A standout Disney song?
Oh, songs. I like a lot of the Frozen songs, honestly. I like just a lot of them are fun. My daughter sings them all the time, so I like them because she sings them. So
yeah, that's gonna make it.
Let It Go and stuff like I love hearing her sing it. So.
That's going to make it more special to you for sure. Yeah. Okay, awesome. And Zan, I want a favourite film, a favourite character, and a favourite song, if you can endeavour me.
I'll go with Mulan.
Good choice.
And what's the what's the
movie or the character?
No, I'm thinking of the prince one. The king one. What the fuck?
There's a lot of Disney with princes and kings.
I'm totally blanking right now.
Lion King?
Kuzma.
Oh, Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, the emperor, the one song
you
from
just
there.
stole my answers, bro.
That's alright, you have to
Fuck your
say.
answers.
Sorry.
Hey, you two got that covered. So Mulan and the Emperor's New Groove, and a song that you can. What jumps out as a favourite Disney song for you? None of them. I hate singing.
Well, there's a funny story. I was playing at a local, and my local opponent did get mad at me because I did not sing any of the songs I played. That was I was really surprised. He was like, "You're the worst opponent I've ever played against."
I mean, like the first time they had the little sheets, right? And you got like points for going in the first like organized play kit, and like one of them was you got an extra point for singing a song. And like the store I went to had songs running 24/7 on the TV.
Love
and
that.
then like when people were playing, they'd sing a song during a match to get the extra point. And like it was like a whole thing.
Okay, that's what. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I was so confused. Yeah, that would make sense if that person was trying to get the points. Yeah,
that's how the tiebreakers are going to work moving forward. Whoever sings the most passionately. Brennan, I'm sorry, man.
My voice doesn't carry in large rooms, so like that's not gonna work.
Oh my God.
You don't want to hear that, yeah.
No.
And Brian, you said Mulan and Emperor's New Groove were also your picks for film and character.
Yeah, my favorite character probably like Mulan. I watched a lot of that with my mom when I was younger, and then maybe there's like some other ones. And then the film's fine. I like the character, but I really like Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
So when he said Mulan, I was like, dang. And then he was like, the prince one, the king, and I was like, what's he gonna say? And then he said Emperor's New Groove, and I was like, wow, unbelievable. Yeah, and then for songs, probably just like any song from Encanto. I watched that with my girlfriend.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Nice choices. Awesome. Right, it has been an absolute pleasure having you gentlemen. Two and a quarter hours we've been going. I don't know how long it will be overall, but it's been a genuine pleasure to have you all. We'll go Brennan, Zan, Brian. Please let the people know where they can find you and any plugs, any thank yous, any shout outs. Take a moment to cook.
Yeah, thanks for having us. That's one thank you. Thanks to the community, you guys are great, and all the people who I got to meet at all the challenges and all things like that. It's been a lot of fun. Never hesitate to come up and say hey, even if I have my head down, just tap me on the shoulder or something, because I take a nap sometime during the day. But no, social media, I usually do Twitter at DeCandio7 for pretty much everything you can think of. Twitch, that otherwise. But yeah, that's where you can find me. But no, that's all I got. Thanks for having us on.
A pleasure. And Zan?
Thanks for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Zan_Syed.
There you go, short and sweet. And Brian?
Yeah, on socials, I'm the Rat, THCRAT, and pretty much everything. And then no specific shout outs except for you, man. Thanks for having me on. And, you were one of the people that a lot of people wanted me to do something with. So appreciate
cool.
everything that you do for the community.
Thanks, man. It's funny with you specifically because, like, I was saying to the boys actually before you arrived, it was like he seemed really private for the first couple of months of Lorcana because you played in all these tier events, but I never saw you really that active on social media or doing interviews or anything because I wanted to interview you 2 months ago and I put out a tweet saying, "Does anyone know the Rat?" And loads of people liked it, but I couldn't track you down, so I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, social media, it's a lot of fun. It's also a time sink, and I did a lot of that for Hearthstone. That was my big thing, and
yeah.
I kind of just wanted to take a step back, but I think you'll see more of me.
Good
Yeah, and then
decision.
anyone else too. If that's trying to reach me, just hit me up on Twitter or whatever.
The rat is becoming the turtle and coming out of his shell. It's nice.
And that is it. It was such a pleasure to have those three guys as guests on the channel. Incredible players, and I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Nice set of topics to go through. Yeah, once again, apologies for the fan in the background. I'm so embarrassed about it. I feel awful, especially over a conversation with such incredible players that I was lucky to have on the channel. So yeah, I feel really awful about that, and I'm really sorry. Hopefully you were able to get through it and still enjoy the conversation. But this has been a really long video, so we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support, and we'll see you soon.